Hello there, guys, YTPC and gals. You know who you are. Still smoking meerschaums, sitting at home. It's still March, so March meerschaum madness. Well, got my Lee Van Cleef with some marlin flake, Rattray's marlin flake. Okay, going to read from Pipefuls, Pipefuls, Pipefuls by Christopher Morley. I'm not going to read the entire book. This is a compilation of articles, essays that he put into or wrote for the Philadelphia Evening Public Ledger and the New York Evening Post. So, we'll start out with the preface, the preface, if you will. And I'm going to read the first article. They're pretty good. I'm only going to read articles that seem pertinent to pipe smokers, and our group here, the YTPC. So, gotta get my pipe going again here. Sir Thomas Browne said that Eve was edified out of the rib of Adam. This little book was edified, for the most part, out of the ribs of two friendly newspapers, the New York Evening Post and the Philadelphia Evening Public Ledger. To them and to the Bookman's Everybody's and the Publishers Weekly, I'm grateful for permission to reprint. Tristram Shandy said, when a man is hemmed in by two indecorums, and must commit one of them let him choose which he will, the world will blame him. Now it is one indecorum to let his collection of small sketches go out as they do, unrevised, and just as they assaulted the defenseless reader of the daily prints. And the other indecorum would be to take fragments of this kind too gravely and attempt by more careful disposition of their pallid members to arrange them into some appearance of painless decease. As Gilbert Chesterton said, I wish I had arranged them into some appearance of... I wish I could say on a similar occasion, their vices are too vital to be improved with a blue pencil or with anything I can think of except dynamite. These sketches gave me pain to write. They will give the judicious patron pain to read. Therefore, we are quits. I think, as I look over their slatin paragraphs, of that most tragic hour, it falls about 4 p.m. in the office of an evening newspaper, when the unhappy compiler tries to round up the broodings of the day and still get home in time for supper. And yet perhaps the will to live is in them, for are they not a naked exhibit of the antics a man will commit in order to earn a living? In extenuation, it may be pleaded that none of them are so long that may not be mitigated by an accompanying pipe of tobacco. The author, Roslyn, Long Island, July 1920. And if any of you guys that are in Long Island and stuff like that, you know, there's Morley Park, Christopher Morley Park. There's actually it was started with his writing shed that was behind his house in Roslyn, I believe. I believe that's true. But, okay, that's the preface. And we'll get on to the first essay as I relight my pipe. There we go. Pipefuls. by Christopher Morley on making friends. Considering that most friendships are made by mere hazard, how is it that men find themselves equipped and fortified with just the friends they need? We have heard of men who asserted that they would like to have more money, or more books, or more pairs of pajamas, but we have never heard of a man saying that he did not have enough friends. For while one can never have too many friends, yet those one has are always enough. They satisfy us completely. One has never met a man who would say, I wish I had a friend who would combine the good humor of A, the mystical enthusiasm of B, the love of donuts, which is such an enduring quality in C, and who would also have the habit of giving Sunday evening suppers like D, and the well-stocked cellar, which is so deplorably lacking in E. No, the curious thing is that at any time and in any settled way of life, a man is generally provided with friends far in excess of his desert, and also in excess of his capacity to absorb their wisdom and affectionate attentions. There is some pleasant secret behind this, a secret that none is wise enough to fathom. The infinite fund of disinterested humane kindliness that is adrift in the world is part of the riddle, the insoluble riddle of life that is born in our blood and tissue. It is agreeable to think that no man, save by his own gross fault, ever went through life unfriended, without companions to whom he could stammer his momentary impulses of sagacity, to whom he could turn in hours of loneliness. It is not even necessary to know a man to be his friend. One can sit at a lunch counter observing the moods and whims of the white-coated pie passer, and by the time you have juggled a couple of fried eggs, you will have caught some grasp of his philosophy of life, seen the quick edge and tang of his humor, memorized the shrewdness of his worldly insight, and been as truly stimulated as if you had spent an evening with your favorite person. If there were no such things as friendships existing today, it would perhaps be difficult to understand what it is like from those who have written about it. We have tried from time to time to read Emerson's enigmatic and rather frigid essay. It seems that Emerson must have put his cronies to a severe test before admitting them to the high-vaulted and rather draughty halls of his intellect. There are fine passages in his essay, but it is intellectualized, bloodless, heedless of the trifling oddities of human intercourse that make friendship so satisfying. He seems to insist upon a sterile ceremony of mutual self-improvement, a kind of religious ritual, a profound interchange of doctrines between soul and soul. His friends, one gathers, are to be antisepticated. All the poisons and pestilence of their faulty humors are to be drained away before they may approach the white and icy operating table of his heart. Why insist, he says, on rash personal relations with your friend? Why go to his house or know his wife and family? And yet, does not the botanist like to study the flowers in the soil where it grows? Polonius, too, is another ancient supposed to be an authority on friendship. The Polonius family must have been a thoroughly dreary one to live with. We have often thought that poor Ophelia would have gone mad anyway, even if there had been no Hamlet. Laertes preaches to Ophelia. Polonius preaches to Laertes. Laertes escaped by going abroad, but the girl had to stay at home. Hamlet saw that pithy old Polonius was a preposterous and orotund ass. Polonius's doctrine of friendship, the friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel, was, we trow, a necessary one in his case. It would need a hoop of steel to keep them near such a dismal old sawmonger. Okay, I'm going to relight. Friendships, we think, do not grow up in any such carefully tended and contemplative fashion as Messrs. Emerson and Polonius suggest. They begin haphazard. As we look back on the first time we saw our friends, we find that generally our original impressions was curiously astray. We have worked along beside them, have consorted with them, drunk or sober, have grown to cherish their delicious absurdities, have outrageously imposed on each other's patience, and suddenly we awoke to realize what had happened. We had, without knowing it, gained a new friend. In some curious way, the unseen borderline had been passed. We had reached the final culmination of Anglo-Saxon regard when two men rarely look at each other straight in the eyes because they are ashamed to show each other how fond they are. We had reached the fine flower and the ultimate test of comradeship. That is, when you get a letter from one of your best friends, you know you don't need to answer it until you get ready to. Emerson is right in saying that friendship can't be hurried. It takes time to ripen. It needs a background of humorous, wearisome, or even tragic events shared together. A certain tract of memories shared in common, so that you know that your own life and your companions have really moved for some time in the same channel. It needs interchange of books, meals together, discussions of one's another's whims with mutual friends to gain a proper perspective. It is set in a rich haze of half-remembered occasions, sudden glimpses, ludicrous pranks, unsuspected observations, midnight confidences when heart spoke to candid heart. The soul preaches humility to itself when it realizes, startled, that it has won a new friend. Knowing what a posit of contradictions we all are, it feels a symptom of shame at the thought that our friend knows all our frailties and yet thinks us worth affection. We all have cause to be shamefast, indeed. For whereas we love ourselves in spite of our faults, our friends often love us even on account of our faults. The highest level to which attachment can go. And what an infinite appeal there is in their faces! How we grow to cherish those curious little fleshy cages, so oddly sculptured, which enclose the spirit within. To see those faces, bent unconsciously over their tasks, each different, each unique, each so richly and queerly expressive of the lively and perverse enigma of man, is a full education in human tolerance. Privately, one studies his own ill-modeled physiognomy to see if by any chance it bespeaks the emotions he inwardly feels. We know, as Hamlet did, the vicious mole of nature is in us, the overgrowth of some complexion that mars the purity of our secret resolutions. Yet our friends have passed it over, have shown their willingness to take us as we are. Can we do less than hope to deserve their generous tenderness, granted before it was earned? The problem of education, said RLS, Robert Louis Stevenson, is twofold. First to know, then to utter. Each man knows what friendship means, but few can utter that complete frankness of communion, based upon full comprehension of mutual weakness, enlivened by a happy understanding of honorable intentions generously shared. When we first met our friends, we met with bandaged eyes. We did not know what journeys they had been on, what winding roads their spirits had traveled, what ingenious shifts they had devised to circumvent the walls and barriers of the world. We know these now, for some of them they have told us, others we have guessed. We have watched them when they little dreamed it, just as they, we suppose, have done with us. Every gesture and method of their daily movement have become part of our enjoyment of life. Not until a time comes for saying goodbye will we ever know how much we would like to have said. At those times, one has to fall back on shrewder tongues. You remember Hilaire Belloc. From quiet homes and first beginning, out to the undiscovered ends, there's nothing worth the wear of winning but laughter and the love of friends. That wasn't even a whole pipeful, but I was reading. I wasn't just puffing. So, if you guys like this, I'll be going through the book and finding other things to try and record on here. But with that, I'm going to say I'll see you all later. Bye.